Fill in the blank. Blank is my favorite sleeper quarterback.
Lamar Jackson.
Phillip Rivers.
I was definitely going to say Lamar Jackson, but I'll take Mitchell Trubisky.
Okay, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. Forget rapid fire. It's important. If two of you were going to say is your favorite sleeper. Well, I think one point we haven't made, guys, is that at quarterback, unless you're in a league where you really think every league member is going to hold two quarterbacks all season long and you're not going to be able to go to waivers, you should really be swinging for the fences with at least one of the two guys you draft if you draft two. So is that sort of – because there's obvious bust potential with Lamar Jackson. But is that sort of why he's a sleeper? He's just got huge upside.
Well, that's why he's in this category as opposed to, a breakout or somebody that we have ranked as a must-start guy. Like to your point, Adam, about shooting for upside. That's why I've been saying Kyler Murray all offseason. He's got as much upside, I think, as anybody, just given what he could be. And he's almost like Lamar Jackson on steroids, potentially, because I think he's a better thrower in a better system. But, you look at what Lamar Jackson could do at the value you're getting him at, and I think, it's – we were at one point, just think about this, in terms of bad throwers. We were telling people to draft Tim Tebow and play Tim Tebow as your starter in the fantasy playoffs because of the running ability. It's just that's what sets these guys apart. We say it's why we're concerned about Cam Newton. He's going to run as much. He's just told you about Deshaun Watson. You're removed from the ACL. Hopefully we'll run some more. These guys, what they do, running the ball. It's why we're concerned about Russell Wilson to an extent because he doesn't run to the same level anymore. It's such an added bonus to that position. And again, scoring really matters because if it is 4 points for passing touchdown, which a lot of people do play, then that changes the whole conversation with him. But I just think that for what he could bring, if he could be, would it be a stretch that he started 7 games, he appeared in some others, and he ran for almost 700 yards? Can you run for 1,000 yards? I think so.
You can. They're going to tailor an entire offense around him.
And if that happens and he throws for 3,000, like I was surprised. I went to look what our projections were for him. And we have him for over 3,000 yards passing, I think right around 600 yards rushing. If he throws for 3,000 yards, I don't know what you have it for, Heath. This is Sportsline's projections. If he throws for 3,000 yards, and I think they have him for 20 touchdowns throwing, he could be the top 3 quarterback. I don't want to say number 1, but he could be right there.
Yeah, I've got him for 3,320 passing touchdowns. I've only got him rushing for 748.
That's ridiculous.
I'm trying to temper expectations a little bit. But yeah, I think I saw somebody on Twitter say that he could break quarterback scoring. And that's like, he's not going to be as good as Patrick Mahomes was last year, but he could. The upside is absolutely ridiculous if he runs for 1,000 yards, scores 8 touchdowns on the ground, and makes any sort of improvement as a passer at all. You mentioned that I'd said Jared Goff. It's not just Jared Goff over the last few years. It's Trubisky. It's Carson Wentz.
No, that's what I'm saying. I didn't know the whole list.
Yeah. But I mean, there's been a lot of them. And I just think if he makes that improvement as a passer and rushes like we expect him to, there's no reason to think he couldn't be top 5.
And if you like to stream, look at this. Miami, Arizona, Kansas City, the first 3 games.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
Is there a good defense there?
No.
Maybe Kansas City? Maybe in Arrowhead?
No. And Marquise Brown, homecoming week 1, start of the week. Anyway.
Lamar Jackson, homecoming week 1.
That's true, yes.
And Mark Ingram lives in South Florida.
Big time, FanDuel. Lamar Jackson is the 18th quarterback off the board. That's 6 point per passing touchdown leagues, half PPR in Fantasy Pros. Phillip Rivers, who Dave said is 17th. He's been a top 12 quarterback 6 years in a row. Mitchell Trubisky is 19th. So it's Rivers, Jackson, Trubisky as the 3 sleepers. They're going 17th, 18th, and 19th off the board. Jackson will certainly be pushed up in 4 point per passing touchdown leagues. If I had to give a sleeper, it's Cam Newton because he's the 10th quarterback off the board, and I think he has QB1 potential. I really do. If he runs, if he gets back to running 500-600 yards, 6 touchdowns, something like that on the ground, something he's done, with fairly regular occurrence here, I think Cam Newton could have his second best season. He won't win the MVP again. I think he could be amazing. And we talked about that last week, so I won't beat a dead horse. Who's your favorite breakout quarterback? Dave.
Jameis Winston.
That's Heath who said Jameis. Dave.
For me, it's Carson Wentz. I think that he's in a great situation, surrounded almost like Andrew Luck. They improved the talent around him. Great offensive line. Great thinker and play caller in Doug Peterson. All Wentz has to do is stay healthy. I know it's been hard for him to do the past couple of seasons, but where I'm drafting him, I'm really, really happy with the potential upside. I think he's got top 5 QB upside.
Jamie, favorite breakout?
I would have said Jameis, so Heath and I are on the same page with sleeper and breakout here. I'll take Kyler Murray. Again, I think, if he can take hold of the system and can legitimately be a good rookie passer, because I do think the rushing will be there for him. Again, you're looking at our projections here. If he can get over 3,500 passing yards and close to 25 touchdowns, I think he could run for more than 578 yards. The problem is will he stay healthy because of his size, which I know everybody is concerned about it. 5'10", which is a generous listing. The offensive line apparently still having some concerns. Some tweets I saw this weekend from practice there for the Cardinals. But I just like the offense that he's going to play in if Kingsbury does what he wants to do. It's interesting because Chip Kelly came to the NFL and sort of the pace and everything that first year was fantastic. And then everybody caught up to him the second year and then really figured him out in San Francisco, and he was done. In Kingsbury, it's going to be a little bit similar in terms of what the first year could look like if, in fact, nobody has paid attention to it or is not necessarily prepared for it. And it's hard to say that's the case because the NFL does such a good job, defensive coordinators do. But I do think that Murray has that type of upside. And again, you said it, Adam. I say it all the time. Shoot for upside at no other position more so than this one. And this guy could also be a top 5 fantasy QB. So it's funny because a lot of guys have that upside to be top 5. But I do think top 10 is realistic for him if, in fact, he does play 16 games.
Yep, and Kyler Murray is the 11th quarterback off the board. He's going in round 9. I think that's the good thing. I understand quarterbacks are going to go earlier in your drafts than in our analyst drafts. However, I still think they're going to go a little bit later than you're used to seeing. People understand the depth of the position. The rules changes last year really gave us just a lot of very good passers last year. And if you fail and you take a round 9 pick on Kyler Murray and he stinks, Phillip Rivers is going in round 12. And he's, like I said, has been a top 12 quarterback 6 years in a row. Jimmy Garoppolo is the 21st quarterback off the board. And I think you all know how I feel about him. He'd be my breakout quarterback. He's averaged 8.5 yards per attempt in his 8 starts with the 49ers. That is unbelievable.
Stay healthy.
I'm hoping for him. Yeah, stay healthy. And he just has to throw more touchdowns. The touchdowns haven't really been there for Jimmy G. All right, guys, I'm going to ask you real quick here. How would you rank them? Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, Kyler Murray. Those were the 3 breakouts you gave. Does everybody have Wentz 1 in that group?
Yep,
I do.
All right, so Jameis or Kyler?
Kyler for me.
Jameis in 6 points for passing touchdowns. Kyler in 4.
Jameis in both for me.
Okay. And then blank will be a bust.
I'll start. I'll say Ben Roethlisberger because you can't take away a pass catcher who's been responsible for 25% of his yards and 30% of his touchdowns each of the last 6 seasons and expect him to continue the pace that he's been on.
If he goes, though, I'm with you. If he goes, though, from, was he 3rd last year to his ADP, I think, is 10th or 9th?
Well, on Fantasy Pros, he is 14th. But,
he's
it's
81st
really
overall on our site.
He's 11th right now. He's 11th right now. So if he goes from 3 to 11 when he's getting drafted as 14, because this is the interesting conversation, is he really a bust? Because he will have outperformed his draft value, but not necessarily, but not lived up to his performance from a year ago. So I think that's he's one of those guys that falls into a gray area because I think by definition he's a failure from his previous performance, but he played better than what people expected him to do based on where he was drafted.
He finished as a top 12 quarterback 3 times in the 9 years before Antonio Brown became a thing. And that was with guys like Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes. I'm not feeling Dante Moncrief and Deontay Johnson and James Washington that much to say that Roethlisberger is going to have a monster season for fantasy.
All right, Heath, who's a bust?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of good options, but I'll go with Drew Brees. I don't think he's going to match his touchdown rate from last year. Don't think he's going to match his efficiency from last year. Certainly don't think he's going to rush for 4 touchdowns again next year. Going into last year, he had 14 rushing touchdowns in 12 seasons in New Orleans, so there's probably 18 points gone right there.
All right, Jamie, you're a bust this year at quarterback?
I was waiting to see which one Heath was going to say because I was going to take the other one. So I'll take Russell Wilson. It's almost a similar argument, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised, to be honest with you, that he's the 12th quarterback off the board. Now, he should be in that range. I think he has a chance to finish there, but I think the expectation sometimes is that he'll do better than that. I mean, it's like a combination of two things that both Dave and Heath just said. You take Doug Baldwin off the field, and I don't think that the combination of DK Metcalf, David Moore, and Jerron Brown are going to make up for what Doug Baldwin did necessarily. And I know last year wasn't the same Doug Baldwin, but it still was production that he's losing. And I also think that the attempts matter. This is a team that wants to run the ball and be a dominant run team. I think with their defense falling apart as quickly as it is, going to be interesting to see if they need Russell Wilson to do more. They not necessarily have done that, which I think is a mistake. If they would allow Russell Wilson to throw more, he would be a monster fantasy quarterback. But they just don't do that until the fourth quarter, and he's absolutely needed. And so if the touchdowns come down in whatever capacity, I think you can still get by with him as a starter. He's in the 25 for me, clearly. But I just don't like the fact that what I saw earlier this offseason, that he was going as a top 7 or 8 quarterback when there are other guys better than him, in my opinion. I think 12 is a good spot for him. So I don't know if he necessarily still qualifies as a bust, but he does make me nervous if he's in the top 10.
I feel like he's a bust based on ADP.
But not this. If he's 12, I'm fine with that.
Well, if
I have him 13th, so it's fine for me.
Where, would you take him in early round 8, I think is where that ADP
I mean, you know my answer to that, no.
Right. So to me, that kind of puts him closer to the
But that's the thing. Like, when you look at ADP compared to just where they're going among quarterbacks,
that's more
a lot of quarterbacks are going to look at busts, going to look like busts to us because they're just going earlier than we would. If you just think about him as QB 13, Russell Wilson, or QB 12 as he is in ADP on CBS, and on Fantasy Pros he's right around there as well. You know what's interesting? Actually, no. Okay, so let me apologize. On Fantasy Pros, he's 7th.
That's the problem to me, right? That's the concern, is that those two guys go in the top 8, and I think that's a mistake. So I'm going to change my answer real quick just because using our ADP, which I think we should. So Russell Wilson 12, good job CBS listeners, viewers, all those things. Patrick Mahomes is a bust, and I think he's going to be the number 1 quarterback, but if he goes 8 overall, it's a bust.
Well, I'm going to use both ADPs. I think it's important because, CBS ADP might be driven by projections, might be driven by you guys. Not everybody goes by us, obviously. The consensus ADP has Russell Wilson as a round 7 pick in between Matt Ryan and Drew Brees, and then Carson Wentz after them. And look, if Wilson and Brees throw the ball more, if they have injuries on defense or they just get away from the run game, like, they're going to make us probably look silly because they're both amazing. But they probably cannot do what they did last year if the pass attempts stay similar, and I think that's why.
It's for Brees, it's easy. Look at 2017.
Yeah, but he had a really low touchdown rate that year.
But that's the concern. If the touchdowns come down,
but
that's
even
what
if
you're
he just
looking
had
at.
a reasonable touchdown rate, he all right. You know what? Let's take a break here. We got to take a break. We got to pay the bills. We'll come right back after this quick word on Fantasy Football Today.